You're listening to What It's Like with Luce, a podcast highlighting ordinary people doing extraordinary things. I'm your host Lucy Norris, and on today's episode I'm joined by fashion assistant and founder of Torey Vintage. A creative from the very start, it wasn't long before this week's guest decided on a career in fashion, which would ultimately take her to the heart of the industry in the City of London. Quickly realising a lack of information and entry ports into the Irish industry, she shifted her focus to a course in London College of Fashion and was accepted to study fashion journalism, where she's been for the last few years. Since then, she set up an online community to help others navigating kickstarting their career in the space and launched her own vintage Depop shop. Sharing her experiences with internships in magazines such as Marie Claire and Fabulous, the realities of moving away from home for the first time, misconceptions about the industry, using social media to boost your chances, and the contrast between opportunities in the UK and Ireland. Here's what it's like to be Torey Cassidy. Before we get stuck into the episode, I just wanted to say that if there is a drop in sound quality throughout, I'm very sorry. But in respect of social distancing, I've had to record episodes remotely. In this challenging time, we're all trying our best, so I really hope everyone is staying safe and that you enjoy the episode. So if we start back, at the very, very beginning, were you always really interested in fashion even as a kid, or is it something that came later on?
I think, when I was really young, I thought I was going to be a dancer. Then I realised that, no, you're not ballet trained, that's never going to happen. And then I didn't really know what I wanted to do around fourth year of school, but I always knew that I was like more creative rather than academic, I suppose. And like right in sixth year, like I loved fashion, I loved putting outfits together and everything, but I just didn't feel like there was a lot of opportunities in Ireland, like to study it, and I wasn't ready to just intern or anything like that. Like I still needed to be in education. So, or even if there was opportunities, I didn't really feel like that there was a lot of information about these opportunities. Like all this stuff on NCID was completely crazy to me. I was like, what is communications? Like communications and where? Do you know what I mean? And like my guidance counsellor or anything couldn't really tell me much, so I decided to go with a fashion course in Sallinogan College of Further Education, and it was a PLC, and I did apply to like some business courses and stuff like that as well, but in the end I was just not really loving anything, and I wasn't really mad about the PLC either, but I knew I wanted to do fashion, and that felt like the most comfortable thing for me to do. So then I did it, and it was actually really good. It was like it covered like styling, buying, journalism, design, and I had no idea. I knew I wanted to be in fashion, but I had no idea whereabouts. So it was good to help me like see what I was good at and see what I wasn't good at. Like I can't draw for anything, so design was never going to be the thing. And then journalism, I really liked like magazines, and like I read a lot of magazines, like even just the Irish ones. So that's where I think I really found that, okay, yeah, maybe fashion journalism is something that I'd like to do.
And then, so I know you're in London now. So how did that move come about?
So, but there was 2 years at Sallinogan, and in the first year I kind of like found my feet and was like, okay, like this is really what I want to do. Like I definitely want to forge a career in fashion. And then the second year, then I was like, okay, like what do I do? How do I actually forge that career? Because I kind of knew how to go about it like that, and I knew that like you kind of had to email people. Maybe if you wanted to sell, you had to like ask them, could you assist? So I went and I was looking up just jobs in Ireland and stuff, and just could not find a job board, like a creative job board at all. Like it just seemed to me like there was nothing. And I couldn't like find the editor of certain magazines. I just found it really difficult to even like figure out who was who in the Irish fashion industry. Yeah, so it was just really like feeling like there was a lack of creativity, or like anybody kind of pushing me towards anything creative here. It just didn't, even though there is like a really cool creative scene, I just don't think that it's represented that well or really that accessible. So I was just like, let me just apply for college over there. If I don't get in, fine, I won't go, like I'll just save and I'll intern. Like that was my plan if I didn't get into college, that I would save and I would intern. But I applied anyway to London College of fashion journalism, and then I think I applied to a couple of different like communication courses, like creative direction, and I can't remember what else, but like basically just fashion communication. But fashion journalism was my number one choice. And then I had seen that people in the UK had been getting like accepted into courses, and like we're going over for interviews and anything, and I just hadn't heard any communication whatsoever from LCF. And I was just like, what's going on? Like I need to like know if I'm moving, because I need to put things to prepare, like, do you know what I mean, put things in order. And so I rang up the admissions or whoever was like dealing with applications, and I was like, I've noticed like I've not even been invited for an interview, and I've noticed that like people are already getting accepted. Like I'm really confused as to what's going on. Like, can I have an update about my application? And they were like, oh, we can't translate your leaving certificate results into like GCSE. Like they really struggle to understand how many points I'd earned or something like that. So then I was like, oh great, that's it. Like my plans are ruined. I'm not going. And then the woman who I was speaking to then just rang me back like 2 hours later and was like, oh yeah, so I've just put your place through. Like you've got in. Like we'll see you in a month's time or whatever. And I was just like, what the hell? Like, it just seemed so, like, I didn't go for an interview or anything. Do you know what I mean? It just kind of was like, oh, yeah, sorry, our mistake. You do have the grades. Like, yeah, you're in. And obviously, I was, like, so worried because the college has, like, such a huge, like, reputation. And it's London College of Fashion. And I was, like, terrified. And I was like, there's no way I'm ever going to get in there.
What was the first few weeks like there? Was it as scary as you thought, or was everyone kind of, in the same boat?
I landed in London and my dad helped me move over, and I brought like 3 suitcases or whatever, um, like huge ones. And then I was staying in student halls, and I just unpacked, and I didn't really, because I wasn't like, obviously nobody really moves out for college in Ireland either. Everybody just kind of stays at home. So I didn't really know how to go about searching for the correct halls or anything like that. So I ended up arriving at halls, and I was told that I was sharing a room with somebody, like some random person that I've obviously never met. And I was like, oh, all right, okay, fine. So yeah, that happened. And then I was just going to like a lot of the parties. Like I was joining all the group chats, and just like anyone that was like trying to meet up, I was like, yeah, like I was literally drunk for the first 2 weeks. The whole time I was just like, I need to make friends, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because I didn't do any research on what halls I should be staying in, it took me an hour and a half to get to uni every day.
Oh no.
Like an hour and a half, because my uni was in Shepherd's Bush, my campus, and my halls were in Peckham. Also, that was the halls that was attached to the arts uni rather than the fashion uni. Anybody that was becoming my friend from like class and stuff like lives really far away from me. And then I felt really lost at the arts uni. Like everybody was quite like out there and eccentric, and it was just like I just really didn't feel like I fitted in there. Do you know what I mean? Like I felt so out of my depth, and I was just like, oh my god, like it's fine, like you'll find friends eventually, do you know? But like class was really good, like being at like obviously London College of Fashion, but again, like because like creative education or anything like that wasn't really like taught in my school, I suppose, or like encouraged. I was kind of just like felt a bit out of my depth, and felt like that there was a lot of people in the class who were way ahead of me. And especially because obviously people who take the GCSEs can take like creative writing classes, or they can take photography classes, where we just have to do like English, Irish, maths and stuff like that. So I was very overwhelmed in the first 2 weeks, and I felt it was probably the loneliest I've literally ever been. Do you know what I mean? Because I was just like, big city, no friends.
Yeah.
Like I don't even know where, like I've never even lived with my family. But like I just had to persevere, and by the end of first year, like I had found my group of friends.
But how did you find initially the kind of the contrast between the Irish fashion industry and then, sorry, what you were being offered then once you got to London?
As soon as I was in London, I just felt like that opportunity was lying on my doorstep, and all I had to do was just literally just open the door. Do you know what I mean? Like, I and even now I'm like, it's there. You've just got to go grab it. Like, and I feel like it's almost easier to access in London because there's just an absolute wealth of opportunity. Where in Ireland there's like quite a small industry, so like if there is an intern at a magazine and she's there for 6 months, that position is not open for 6 months, whereas there's 50 million magazines in London, so there's going to be something you can do for somebody. Do you know what I mean? And like, I just feel like there's so much more opportunity that you can thrive and you can succeed in Ireland, but I just think that you are going to do it on a completely different level in London, because obviously all the main brands are there. Anybody that you want or are probably going to work with are probably based there. Do you know what I mean? So like, you can't really compare them because it's just two different worlds, you know?
Yeah. And did you find that when you were kind of starting to go for internships and stuff like that, did your college help you find those for yourself, or was it kind of the same process of hunting for them?
So it's a bit of both. I think with LCF, you get out of it what you want to get out of it. Like there's like 1,000,001 talks every week, and you can sign up to them, and or you can book. There's like a careers team, so if you're struggling to get an internship, you can book a one-to-one tutorial with them, and they'll help you. And they've also got like a creative opportunities website where a lot of brands will post, because they know a lot of the good thing about LCF is it does really have connections, so that like if a brand is looking for an intern, they'll ask LCF, but you have to put yourself in the position to ask. Do you know what I mean? Like LCF aren't going to, like, they're not going to come out and say you need to have a tutorial, you need to book them yourself.
Yeah. And what internships have you done so far?
When I was in like first and second year, I was just like crazy. I was like, I need every internship I can get. But I was just like interning here, there, and everywhere, and I was like emailing stylists and like taking any experience I could get. But I honestly think that was like almost backtracking myself, because all I wanted to do, like my dream job after I graduate is to be like a fashion assistant at a magazine. But I was doing PR internships, I was doing like writing internships, and I do love writing, but I feel like that's something I can do on the side.
Yeah.
What I want my 9 to 5 to be is like fashion, you know?
Yeah.
And then I was really interested in video as well, and then I went for an interview for an internship at Elle, and it was going to be a year-long internship, and it was paid. So if I was given it, I was going to just take a year out of uni, like defer for a year.
Okay.
And the editor said to me in that internship, she was like, I congratulate like the wealth of experience that you've been able to build for yourself, but she was like, it's completely sporadic and it doesn't make sense. Like and she's like, so what do you want to do? And I was like, well, I want to be a fashion assistant. And she's like, okay, but you've only got one fashion internship. And she's like, you need to build up like more. And she's like, but at least now that you've done those, you know that you want to do fashion, like you can write off the other ones. But she was like, you need to have like at least 2 or 3. So then I was like, okay, cool. So then I went to Marie Claire, and I did an internship there. And then I went to Fabulous magazine, and I did an internship there. And then after the internship of Fabulous magazine finished, they would email me every now and again and just ask if I could help, or like if they had like a big shoot and they needed an extra pair of hands. And I was like, yeah, no problem. And then they were willing to pay me for that then, because it was past the internship time. But it was like as and when, you know what I mean? It wasn't necessarily an internship. But yeah, I really recommend doing them, but I definitely recommend not being so sporadic with them, because ultimately you just burn yourself out. Like, I think smart work should come before hard work. Do you know what I mean? Like, you can work all day and all night, but if it's not moving you towards your goal, then it just doesn't really make sense.
Also, as I think everyone thinks that the fashion industry is so terrifying, and sometimes it is, but from my experience in it, and like we were saying, how they kind of email you and stuff like that, once you make good connections with people are really nice. Like, they want to help you out if they think you're good. So what's your experience been with kind of that side of things, like dealing with people in it? Like, have you found it scary, or have you found them nice?
I find myself always getting quite nervous in a professional environment anyway. Like I just haven't been able to get over that yet.
Yeah.
um don't ask me why, but I just literally like I think I come across like I'm confident, but inside I'm like, help. You know,
Yeah, I know.
like I really do crumble, or I'll say things and then I'll like scold myself inside, being like, oh my god, you sound weird, but like I know I don't, like, and I just think it's because like I wanted to work so much. But I've not really ever had like a really bad experience. Like I've had obviously people like pass me off or like say, oh my god, like no, that's wrong, and I've like felt a bit taken aback by it, like, and I'm like, oh like they didn't need to say it like that, do you know what I mean? But I just think as well that you have to understand that like some of these people have like a lot of responsibility on their shoulders, and like their boss could be shouting at them, and it's not like nobody's ever like shouted at me per se, but I think you can't be sensitive. Like if someone says like, can you hurry up with that, like, you know what I mean, like they're being shouted at by somebody else, all you have to just say is like, yeah, like that's no problem, like I'll get it to you now, do you know what I mean? And obviously if someone's point blank being mean to you, like just leave, no job is worth that, like, do you know what I mean? But like I think sometimes in a working environment when things are like high pressure, especially if you're on a shoot and you're dealing with garments that are like cost more than your house, like, and
Yeah.
spilled something on them, like there's gonna be chaos, do you know what I mean? And but it's the same in any environment, like it's not just fashion. Like if you're on a building site and you're a builder and you nearly dropped a brick on somebody, someone's going to shout at you for it. I think like just professionally you just have to learn to have some thick skin.
Yeah, for sure. And I think as well, like fashion, it's such a fun environment, and it
Yeah.
half of it is like what you see in the movies, you know. I don't know if you've done fashion weeks, but like
Yeah.
insane and so much fun. But then at the same time, you have to be ready for the high pressure that comes with it. I'd be interested to know as well what your opinions are kind of on, say, using the likes of Instagram as a way into the industry rather than, you know, taking the route of studying and internships and maybe the more traditional route.
Yeah, I really feel like that like the traditional route does not make any sense for actually forging a career within the industry. Like for me, I didn't leaving school, I would have not been ready to go to work yet. Like I was not mature enough at 18. I was not like I'm happy that I've been able to make those mistakes in the traditional route and at uni than I am professionally, because I just would have been so embarrassed and I go really red. But I think like, yeah, like especially like all these girls who are like building themselves up as influencers, like, and they're getting deals with brands and they're probably being paid more than the brand is paying a magazine to have them like in their page. Like that's so admirable, I think. And like if you have the ability to build yourself up and post a picture and run your own campaigns, I mean, that's the dream. And like I hate the kind of hatred, I suppose, like towards bloggers and stuff like that. And they're like, oh, they're just trying to sell you stuff and stuff like that, like, or everything's an ad. And it's like, what do you think magazines do? I think, yeah, like if you have an ability to do that and if you can find your niche and stand out, then that's by all means saving yourself a lot of money.
Do you ever find there's potentially a little bit of frustration on your side that you've put so much hours and money into getting a formal education and then getting the work experience like you've been told you need to, and then watching people online kind of getting asked to work in magazines or whatever because they have a lot of followers?
I mean, I think if someone has a lot of followers and that like they've wrote a blog or they're out shooting content all the time, then they work for it. And like I truly believe that like these bloggers who people just say they post a picture and they get paid, and it's like, do you know how much work goes into one picture? So I really believe they work for it, but it's annoying when you see, what's the word for it, when like someone's daughter is like
Oh, nepotism.
nepotism. Yeah, like nepotism is annoying. I think like Noel Gallagher's daughter was named contributing editor of Tatler magazine or something like that. it's just like I to be fair, I'm not educated on what she had previously done, but like things like that is just like, oh, that makes no sense. But like obviously at the same time, like it's business.
At the moment, you're working on tastemakers. So can you
Yeah.
tell me a little bit more about that?
So it just basically goes back to when I was trying to move to London and figure out how I would go to London, how I would afford it as a student, how to get into fashion, like the best route for me, because I think there's obviously a lot of different routes that would suit other people. And there was just no, like I just could not find any information, or even if there was information out there, like I really struggled to find it, and it would be like sporadic, like on one website, on the next website, or whatever. And then it was always UK based. There was nothing to help like specifically an Irish student, or like talk about my rights, or like the finances that I was entitled to. So it's kind of just always been something in the back of my head that I felt like was missing anyway. And I feel like if I had have had it when I was younger, that maybe I probably wouldn't went to university, that I probably would have saved a little bit, like just worked in retail, or like something probably still to do with fashion. But I mean, I've thoroughly enjoyed my time at LCF and I wouldn't go back and change it. But I think if I had have read these things, I probably would have been able to approach it with a better idea. And because I thought you had to go to university, but actually you don't.
Yeah.
Like your interning is more important and building your connections. So yeah, like I just really felt like that there was just no guidance or educational articles or like anything like that that would help me better approach the fashion industry, specifically with coming from Ireland, because I feel like there is kind of stuff like that in the UK. So yeah.
I would also be interested to know what you think, having kind of done your research and being through it yourself, is the biggest challenge that people are going to face who want to enter the industry at the moment.
Money.
Mm.
Like you can't pay your bills doing free work. You can't. Do you know what I mean? Finance is a big thing, and how I've managed to do internships is that I've signed up to it like a staffing agency where it's just like hospitality, so it's just like waitressing or hostessing or wine pouring or whatever. And it's actually quite cool because you get to go to some fancy events. Like I went to the British Film Festival, met like Angelina Jolie, and you get to pick and choose your own hours, and mostly it's like in the evening or on the weekend. So I would intern all throughout the week, and then if I needed to go do a shift in some of the evenings, I'd go do a shift in some of the evenings, and then I'd work every Saturday and Sunday as well. And like, I would always be absolutely wrecked while I was doing that. But like internships they're only allowed to last for a month, unpaid, and after that they have to pay you. Or like then another way I've found around it is to just assist stylists, like freelance stylists, because their work is completely sporadic. So that way you're only having to work for free once every so often, and then you can still do your agency work in between.
And how would you say make those connections with the freelance stylists?
So I've just like been following them on Instagram. So like if I find one stylist that I like most of the time, magazines, if they're posting like their cover shoot or whatever, they'll in the title of the caption they'll say who styled it. Now, asking can you help assist someone who's just done the cover of Vogue is probably a bit of a stretch, do you know what I mean? So usually that person is like obviously so high up and they have someone who is underneath them who is their assistant but probably also does a little bit of freelance on the side. So I think if you find people who aren't necessarily like Edward Enninful, like the editor of Vogue, like you find like mid-level stylists who are doing cool things and you like their style or whatever, and then most of the time if you find their Instagram, their email is attached to their Instagram.
And then just leading from that to kind of wrap everything up, if you had to pick one thing out of all of the experience that you've had and the ups and downs of the whole thing, what's the biggest piece of advice you would give someone starting out?
Oh God, I give so much. Read Tastemakers. That's why all my advice be on that. I think, I think figure out what you want to do. So fashion's like a obviously quite a wide industry, like, and fashion is just like the umbrella. Like, is it, do you want to do journalism? Do you want to work at magazines? And then if you do want to work at magazines, do you want to be on the features team writing articles, or do you want to be on the picture desk? Do you want to like help do the graphics, like do up the pages of the magazine, or do you want to be working on the shoots? So do you want to be on the fashion team? And I think you have to intern to figure that out. Figure out what you want and then try to stay on that path. Like, if you know that like fashion is definitely your number one choice, then just keep doing fashion internships. And then when you're there, make yourself known, because it's very easy to just get like hide behind the shadows and not make yourself known as in like, hey everybody, like morning, but like just if like you're sitting beside somebody, just be like how long have you been in this job, like did you work at another magazine previously? And then you'll get to find out about what they do, and then they'll probably ask you what you do as well. So then that way you're building up a rapport with them, you're having conversations rather than just going in and being like, hi, doing your work and leaving, because nobody's going to remember you then, and nobody's going to say, oh, she's good, like I recommend you on.
Well, thanks so much for chatting with me today. It's been very insightful.
Right.
I'm sure it'll help a lot of people out. So thanks for your time.
Yeah, thanks so much.
Thank you so much for listening, and as always, please rate, share and leave a comment if you like what you hear. And don't forget to follow @whatitslike_pod on Instagram and Facebook. To find out more about Torey's shop and website, visit the links provided in the show notes. I'll be back next week with more inspiring stories, but for now this has been What It's Like with Luce.